Noah, his ark, and the great flood. Adam and Eve had many children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and soon the human family became quite large. Sadly, many of the descendants of Adam and Eve were disobedient, selfish, and wicked. There were some good people, but they married the wicked ones, and in time they too were drawn into sin. They no longer served God and soon forgot Him. Their hearts had become hardened and filled with darkness. Still, there were a few who believed in God and tried to serve Him. Among these was a good and holy man called Noah. God gave him 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All 3 grew up to be good men like their father. They were obedient and did their best to love and serve God. When God saw how corrupt, violent, and sinful the people had become, He warned Noah that He planned to wipe out their wickedness with a great flood. God said He would send rain for days and days, and the sun would be darkened by violent storm clouds. Because Noah and his family were faithful and pleasing to God, He intended to spare them. He told Noah to make a large ark, or houseboat. It would be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. A boat of these dimensions would be as long as 2 city blocks, as wide as 4 houses, and as high as a 5-story building. This massive ark had 3 levels, with a window and a door. It was covered with a roof, and the entire ship was covered with tar to keep the water out. When everything was finished, at God's command, Noah began to fill the ark. He brought inside males and females of every kind of animal so they could form animal families. He also brought inside enough food to feed them all. Then at last, Noah took his family into the ark. Can you imagine how the wicked people laughed at Noah for building such a large ship and filling it with so many animals? They must have thought he had gone crazy. But then, the rain began. For 40 days and 40 nights it rained and rained as it had never rained before. Soon, the rivers and seas overflowed their boundaries. Human beings and animals must have panicked and tried to find a refuge from the flood. But no matter how high they climbed, there was no place of safety. The water rose higher and higher as the rain continued to pour down from the dark sky, until at last it stood 20 feet above even the highest mountain. Every living thing left on the land was drowned in the flood, but the ark floated safely across the raging waters. So Noah, his family, and the animals in the ark were saved. After several weeks, the rain finally stopped and the skies opened up. In the 5 months following, the ark continued to float around on the water. One day, it came to rest on a mountain. At first, Noah could see nothing from the window except water. But after a time, he saw the tops of some mountains. It was a sign that the water level was going down. He waited 40 days longer and then sent out a raven and a dove. The dove returned because it could not find a place to rest. A week later, he sent forth a second dove. This time, the dove returned, carrying an olive branch in its beak. This meant that plants had begun to grow again on the land. After another week, he sent the dove out a 3rd time. This time, it did not return. Noah knew then that the flood was over. 7 more weeks passed, and God spoke to Noah. He told him to come out of the ark along with his family and all the animals. It was time for them all to make new homes. Then they could have new families so that the world could be filled again with creatures of every kind. Noah left the ark, grateful to God for having saved him and his family from the flood. He built an altar to God and offered on it several animals and birds. God was pleased with the sacrifice of Noah and promised he would never again destroy the earth by the waters of a flood. God set a rainbow in the sky as a sign of the promise he had made to reward the faithfulness of Noah. God blessed Noah and his sons and told them that the earth with all that it contained was theirs. They began to farm the soil and plant vineyards, living as they had before they entered the ark.